Over 1,000 protesters arrested on campuses across the country. The mayor of New York City and the NYPD gives an update on Columbia University and City College. Secretary of State Antony Blinken meets with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Jerusalem. We bring you the latest on ceasefire negotiations. Former President Trump will hold his first major campaign event since the New York trial began. Find out more about Trump's schedule today. A major update regarding a controversial parole program. New documents now show to which American cities the Biden administration is flying immigrants from Latin America. Google services went down for millions of users around the globe due to an outage. What the company is saying about the problem. Welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephanie Cox. Breaking news, the Arizona Senate repealed an 1864 abortion ban today. The state Supreme Court had previously approved a law that bans all abortions except when the mother's life is at risk. The Arizona state governor is expected to immediately sign the repeal, but it's possible the near total ban could be in effect until after the general election in November. Meanwhile, Florida's 6-week abortion ban goes into effect today. And new details on the occupation of Columbia University's historic Hamilton Hall. The NYPD was called in by administration leaders to arrest pro-Palestinian agitators last night. A similar scene unfolded at the City College of New York. NTD's Fiona G. has the latest.
Approximately 300 people were arrested at Columbia and City College. We are processing the arrests to distinguish between who were actual students and who were not supposed to be on the ground. These external actors with a history of escalating situations and trying to create chaos, not to peacefully protest, but create chaos.
The NYPD released a video of a professional protest consultant who was reportedly seen instructing protesters outside Hamilton Hall. Occupying students made human chains, destroyed security cameras, and took steps to avoid arrest. Police say these tactics clearly point to outside influence. They warn the methods can spread to anti-Israel encampments at other schools. In a letter to the NYPD, the president of Columbia University asked for police to stay on campus until at least May 17th. The encampment has now been cleared from the lawn of the university. Students arrested now face expulsion from the school and criminal charges. At City College, protesters lit flares and clashed with police. After clearing out agitators, the NYPD removed a Palestinian flag from the campus flagpole and raised the American flag. College authorities stated that calling the NYPD was a response to repeated acts of vandalism and violence and not a crackdown on peaceful protest. Violence continues on college campuses. At the University of California, Los Angeles, police was called in when physical attacks began between opposing groups. The university has now canceled classes in response to the chaos. Nationwide, over 1,000 protesters have been arrested. Fiona G., NTD News.
White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre reiterated at a briefing today that the White House strongly condemns anti-Semitism and emphasized students' right to peacefully protest and have a safe learning environment. She also said the White House is discussing plans to allow Palestinian refugees who have American family members to enter the country. And in response to the anti-Israel campus protests, Washington lawmakers are stepping up efforts to denounce anti-Semitic violence. Today, the AntiSemitism Awareness Act is scheduled for a House floor vote. The proposal requires the U.S. Department of Education to use a definition of anti-Semitism from the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance when enforcing anti-discrimination laws. The bipartisan effort is also receiving support from Jewish groups. The American Civil Liberties Union, however, is against the measure, saying that there are already laws against anti-Semitism. For more on this, we go now to NTD News contributor Mike Leon. He's the Policy and Strategy Director of the Free and Equal Elections Foundation and host of the news commentary podcast, Can We Please Talk? Mike, great to see you again. New York's Mayor Eric Adams has said that there are outside actors at play influencing the student protests. What do you think could be the motivation behind this? Could it simply be to stir up chaos?
Hey, Steph, good to see you, first and foremost. Yeah, you heard the mayor there in that package before talking about outside agitators. And we've seen this before play out over the last 4 years in Black Lives Matter protests. We've seen it with the death of different folks in the Black community that have passed away. And all of these peaceful protests end up turning out to be violent. And I think the mayor I want to give Mayor Eric Adams a little bit of credit on this because, the New York City Police Department was summoned to Columbia campus to deal with this. He mentioned there that there's been over 300 or so arrests, and now they're going through the process of finding folks that, have a history of doing this, right? Like they have no connection to Columbia University, no connection to the causes whatsoever of the peaceful protests, which is what we're losing sight of, by the way, and that these folks should be, met with the extreme, the fullest intent of the law because they're agitating the situation and they're causing violence and they're causing students to not feel safe and they're disrupting the process that Columbia is going through as May 15th graduation, descends upon the university.
Yeah, now there's this viral video online, I don't know if you've seen it, of a pro-Palestinian protester. She's demanding that Columbia University ensure access to humanitarian aid for her peers who were barricaded inside a building on campus. She says that they have to prevent them from dying of dehydration and starvation. What are your thoughts about this kind of thing?
Steph, we're both shaking our head because, they protested. They went there. Now they're the ones causing this situation, and they want the university to help them by giving them food and aid, and they're comparing it to the humanitarian crisis that's playing out in Gaza. It's ridiculous on its surface. Anybody who is not rolling their eyes right now listening to me talking should be, all right? I'm rolling them for you because we heard this woman yesterday and she was challenged by the media saying, you're asking the university to do something which you did yourself. You put yourself in this situation. You're the one that's creating this chaos and now you're demanding the university acts in accordance with what? You're disrupting campus policy, and obviously the New York City Police Department has been summoned into this situation. It makes no sense whatsoever, and I encourage a lot of people to watch this video because it's antithetical to what they're trying to do, which is peacefully protest, get their message out, get these universities to divest from Israel, whatever it is, but it's losing the message because she's asking the university to help them with food and aid, which they don't need because they're the ones that are protesting and causing this disruption. It makes no sense.
And now that the encampment at Columbia University is cleared up, what do you think will happen next?
Well, I was mentioning May 15th, the graduation date for Columbia. A lot of universities are dealing with this. My college, my pin here, Rutgers, has had protests on the campus as well. So everyone's getting ready for, college graduation that's coming up on these campuses. And the biggest thing, and we alluded to earlier with Mayor Eric Adams talking about the arrest, there's a lot of students that have been expelled. They're not going to be able to participate, whether or not they were seniors, rising juniors, whatever it was. They may not be part of Columbia University anymore going forward. And so what we're going to see right now is we're going to figure out the names of these folks that were involved. You're going to hear their stories on different outlets as they're being told. And the university is going to have to figure out, there may be some lawsuits involved too, because they shifted to a remote work environment. And there are some students that have been talking about putting a class action lawsuit together around this because they feel that the school wasn't acting in their best interest. They weren't able to learn properly and go in person for the learning. So we'll see how all of this unshakes after May 15th, once this graduation at Columbia happens and other graduations happen around the country.
For sure, we'll be keeping our eye on that, but definitely it looks like ramifications in many different directions at many different scales. Thank you so much, Mike Leon. Always great to speak with you.
Likewise, Steph.
Next up, Secretary of State Antony Blinken has declared that the time is now to reach a deal to free hostages and pause the war. He made those comments today during his latest trip to Israel.
Israel has made very important compromises in the proposal that's on the table, demonstrating its desire and willingness to get this agreement and get it done. Now, as we've been saying, it's on Hamas.
Former President Trump is visiting the battleground states of Wisconsin and Michigan for campaign events today. Trump will hold rallies in Waukesha, Wisconsin and Freeland, Michigan. They'll mark his first major campaign events since the New York hush money trial began on April 15th. Trump's campaign said that in Waukesha, Trump will talk about the impact of inflation on household crime and his plans to crack down on illegal immigration. Rallies come a day after the judge in the so-called hush money trial fined Trump $9,000 for violating a gag order. The judge warned Trump that he could be jailed for further violations. And House Speaker Mike Johnson appears to be on thin ice with his job, at least with Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's signaling that she'll move forward with an attempt to oust him, just one day after House Democrat leaders promised to back him.
We cannot let people down again. We cannot fail President Trump. Next week, I am going to be calling this motion to vacate. Absolutely calling it. I can't wait to see Democrats go out and support a Republican speaker and have to go home to their primaries and have to run for Congress again, having supported a Republican speaker, a Christian conservative. I think that'll play well. I'm excited about it.
House Speaker Mike Johnson said Tuesday that it was the first he'd heard of Democratic leaders saying they would help him keep his job. He says now is not the time to be playing politics and promoting chaos. Johnson has come under fire from some Republicans for his role in passing the $95 billion emergency spending bill. A small number of GOP members could oust Johnson as Speaker, but only if Democrats vote with them. Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries and other Democratic leaders say they won't just let that happen. Congresswoman Greene filed a motion to vacate with the House clerk last month, but the effort hasn't picked up momentum. And new documents show which cities the Biden administration is flying immigrants to in the controversial parole program that skips over the border. This, as a new poll shows, Americans firmly believe that immigration is one of the most critical issues facing the U.S. Let's watch.
The Department of Homeland Security never shared where the parole program flights land. Reports previously suggested that Florida might be a key destination. That's despite the fact that the Republican-led state is against uncontrolled immigration. Now, House Republicans received documents through a subpoena. They show where the immigrants landed from January to August of last year. Miami and Fort Lauderdale were leading the list, with around 150,000 arrivals in total. In comparison, New York City is at the third spot with only around 15,000 arrivals. In total, Homeland Security flew around 200,000 immigrants to 50 airports across the country during those 6 months. This comes as a new Gallup poll shows that many Americans, 27%, say immigration is the most crucial issue the U.S. is facing. That's on top of other issues like the government, the economy, and inflation. 28% held this view in February and March as well. This is the longest consecutive window in which immigration has been a top concern for Americans. The poll does not differentiate between legal and illegal immigration. So far, Border Patrol agents have encountered almost 8 million illegal immigrants during the Biden administration. This is Dave Martin for NTD News.
And over in the United Kingdom, immigration officers have started rounding up and detaining migrants with plans to deport them. Parliament passed a new law in April that sends asylum seekers to Rwanda if they arrived in Britain without permission. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is planning to start deportation flights to the African nation this summer. Immigration officials say more than 7,500 people have crossed the English Channel in small boats from France since January. The British government is using the law as a way to prevent migrants from making the dangerous journey that killed 5 people last week. Human rights advocates opposed to the policy are preparing to file a new round of lawsuits to stop the process. The UK Supreme Court ruled the policy unlawful last year. And at least 24 people have died after a section of a highway collapsed in southern China following weeks of heavy rain. Authorities say dozens more are injured. Early Wednesday morning, Beijing time, a section of a highway in South China suddenly collapsed. But Beijing has a history of covering up accurate numbers, so the death toll remains unverified. What is known is that 24 vehicles fell during the collapse, causing explosions and fires. Videos from the site show the blackened remains of the cars piled together, engulfed in flames and heavy smoke. The incident happened in China's southern province of Guangzhou, where it's been raining for nearly a month. The rainfall significantly increased in the past 2 weeks, resulting in flooding. It appears the ground beneath the highway caved in on itself. When we come back, if you are experiencing problems using Google's search engine or website this morning, you're not alone. An outage at the tech giant is impacting users around the globe. A multi-billion-dollar settlement has been reached by ovarian cancer victims who claim a major drug maker's talc-based baby powder is the cause. And Americans aren't getting enough sleep. NTD's Andrew Thomas speaks with a neurologist to discuss some of the adverse health effects and how to get more shut-eye. That and more after the break.
American Medicine Today, featuring cutting-edge medical and science innovators and a medical professional's insight on political and social issues plaguing our nation and healthcare. American Medicine Today, Saturdays 6 and Sundays at 9 on NTD television and other streaming platforms.
No young person should ever have to worry about having a safe place to sleep at night, or a warm meal to eat, or whether anyone cares about them.
I grew up in poverty, and I actually became physically homeless right after I turned 16.
I didn't have anywhere to sleep, and I didn't really have friends or family that could support me.
To be homeless as a teen, I didn't ask for that.
1 in 10 young adults will experience a form of homelessness this year, and that's unacceptable. But the good news is there is an organization making a big difference, Covenant House.
For the young people who didn't ask to be put in unthinkable situations, Covenant House is there providing safety, hope, and a brighter future. Call or go online now. For a gift of only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love.
For over 50 years, Covenant House has been helping youth in crisis and giving them the support and tools they need to succeed in life.
Without the Covenant House, I honestly could not tell you where I would be today.
Call or go online right now to safeplacetosleep.org with your gift of just $19 a month. With your monthly donation, you'll receive this soft, comforting blanket as a reminder of the warmth and safety your gift will provide a young person tonight.
I would not be here today if it weren't for the kindness of strangers, people who donated to Covenant House so that they could support me when I couldn't support myself.
I have no words to express how Covenant House changed my life.
Your monthly gift is urgently needed to reach young people in communities like yours who didn't ask to be put in unthinkable situations.
Your support makes the work of Covenant House possible.
Call or go online to safeplacetosleep.org with your gift of just $19 a month.
The glory of piano masterpieces from the Baroque, Classical, and Romantic periods. New Tang Dynasty Television invites you to join the 2024 NTD International Piano Competition. Together, we preserve and revitalize the art of authentic classical piano music. October 14th to the 19th at the Kaufman Music Center in New York City. Apply now at piano.ntdtv.com.
Adopting you was the best decision in our life. And I am so proud to call you my son.
The world's largest internet search engine was hit by a massive outage Wednesday. There are reports the outage impacted Google users worldwide. According to the tracking app Down Detector, Google users experienced problems with the company's search engine and its website. U.S. users most affected were in Denver, New York City, and Seattle. There were also reports of outages in parts of Asia, Europe, and South America. No word yet from Google as to the cause and if services have been restored. And people suffering from cancer they believe was caused by using a drug manufacturer's baby powder may soon be compensated. Today, Johnson & Johnson announced a $6.5 billion settlement over allegations of causing ovarian cancer. Johnson & Johnson faced tens of thousands of lawsuits over allegations that its Talc C baby powder caused ovarian cancer. The company discontinued sales in 2022, maintaining its product is safe. Johnson & Johnson made 2 attempts to have the original $8.9 billion claim reduced by filing for bankruptcy under a subsidiary. The courts denied those requests, ruling the company had enough money to pay the victims. 75% of the claimants must approve the settlement. And Donald Trump's stock and his Truth social media company is making him richer, and more student loan debt relief from Joe Biden. Here's NTD's Don Ma with today's business brief.
All right, thank you very much, Steph. To start off, President Joe Biden today announced the approval of more than $6.1 billion in more student loan debt relief for nearly 317,000 borrowers. And these borrowers were those who were enrolled at any art institute campus from January 2004 until October 2017. Now, the art institutes were a private for-profit system of art schools in the United States that faced a host of legal issues and closed last September. The Education Department found that the art institutes and its parent company, Education Management Corporation, it made misrepresentations to students about post-graduation employment salaries, and the measure brings the total amount of student loan debt relief put in place by the Biden administration to nearly $160 billion for nearly 4.6 million borrowers. And Steph, let me tell you about Reuters Ipsos poll. Apparently, a majority of Americans believe that China uses TikTok to shape U.S. public opinion, and that it is an influence tool for Beijing. Some 58% of respondents to the 2-day poll agreed with the statement that the Chinese regime uses TikTok to influence American public opinion. Republicans were more likely, it seems, than Democrats to see China as using the app to affect U.S. opinions. The poll found that 50% of Americans supported banning TikTok. Now, the poll only surveyed U.S. adults and doesn't reflect the views of people under the age of 18. The poll showed that 46% of Americans agreed to a statement saying that China is using the app to spy on everyday Americans. And finally, Steph, former President Donald Trump just landed another $1.8 billion worth of stock in the corporate owner of Truth Social. Now, Trump Media Technology Group disclosed the windfall for Trump in a filing, saying that the former president has received another 36 million shares in the company. That bonus is known as earn-out shares, and it was triggered by the company's share price staying above certain levels. Now, at current prices, those new shares are valued at approximately $1.8 billion on paper. All right, that's all from me, Steph. Back to you.
All right, according to a Gallup poll released earlier this month, only about a quarter of Americans are getting at least 8 hours of sleep. NTD's Andrew Thomas speaks with a neurologist to discuss some of the adverse health effects and how to get more shut-eye.
Are you getting enough sleep? A Gallup poll published on April 15th found that 57% of Americans say they would feel better if they could get more. Only 42% said they are getting as many Z's as they need. Neurologist Dr. Brandon Crawford is concerned.
What we're seeing is this general trend in the population that our circadian rhythms, our circadian biology is being altered, and not in a good way. And this most recent poll is telling us that, it's reflecting it. It's telling us that the quality of sleep is going down and that the amount of stress or the amount of perceived stress is going up.
What happens to the human body when we sleep?
Number one, we have a glymphatic system. So our glymphatics, it's like taking out the trash, right? It's like lymphatics in our body, but basically we're sweeping away all the inflammation, all the debris that we've gathered through the day from all the metabolic activity in our brain. This is essential for a properly functioning brain. And this is one reason why when you wake up in the morning, you feel that clear-headedness and you feel more energetic, or you should, right?
Crawford says screen exposure has an adrenaline-like effect on the body before bedtime.
I call it the digital hypodermic needle. Whenever you're on a screen, right, people are going to sleep, they're looking at their phones, they're watching TV, they're getting that high-frequency stimulus, okay? What this does is this actually does stimulate adrenaline. This stimulates norepinephrine, this stimulates dopamine, this stimulates this neurochemistry that does not promote sleep.
Crawford also explains how screen lights are inconsistent with our human evolutionary biology.
Think of it this way. When the sun goes down, our brain is not designed to then flash a bunch of high-frequency lights in front of our eyes. When the sun goes down, we're supposed to be in the dark. That's how our brain is designed. That's how our body is designed. We have this circadian biology that follows the light of the day, right? So when we start to disrupt it, when we start to flood our brain with this artificial light, we start to see these adverse effects, right?
In addition to limiting or eliminating screen time before bed, Crawford recommends people stop eating 3 hours before hitting the sack.
And this is something that people don't really realize, but you actually have circadian clock genes in your liver that are very connected to when you eat, right? So yes, of course, we need to be watching what we eat, but we also need to be aware of when we eat, because if you eat right before you go to sleep, that is going to reset these circadian genes specifically in the liver, and that's going to disrupt sleep.
So what kind of adverse health effects are you and other doctors seeing from patients that aren't getting enough sleep or aren't getting good quality sleep?
So some of the main ones are going to be diabetes and insulin resistance. You're also going to carry a higher risk for cardiovascular disease, and you increase your risk for things like dementia and Alzheimer's and neurodegenerative diseases.
Gallup's April poll found that only 26% of Americans said they got 8 or more hours of sleep a night. Just over half reported getting 6 to 7 hours. 20% said they got only 5 hours or less. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Thank you for watching NTD Newsroom. I'm Stephanie Cox. We'll have more stories from the U.S. and around the world. Join Tiffany Meyer for the NTD Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific.